Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Kyle Mao. I'm the founder of Hire UA Teamity and a co-founder at Selo Garage. In this video, I'm going to be talking about 8 more macro lessons I've learned from founding these 3 separate companies and just part of the journey and all the ups and downs. Basically stuff that will probably help you in your business, or if you're looking to start a business, will also be useful for you. So, 8 lessons I learned founding 3 different companies. Again, this is for existing business owners, existing founders who are frustrated perhaps by the idea of idea jumping. What I mean by this is you start this campaign from this one thing you saw on the internet, and then you see something else on social media and you say, oh, that's a good idea, I should do that too. You end up hopping from thing to thing instead of actually focusing and getting one thing done and doing it at a high level. Or this video is also for people looking to start their own business who feel information overloaded. Again, by the same thing. Should I start an agency? Should I do drop shipping? Should I do high ticket drop shipping? Should I do, fulfilled by Amazon? Should I become a coach or a consultant? As a side note, why would you become a coach and consultant unless you actually have something to coach or consult on? If you're going to start being a business consultant, you've never started a business, that seems like a pretty stupid idea to me. But a lot of people do that. Big old pyramid scheme. Macro concept of all of this is that business is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And you should actually pick one thing and you should actually go through and do it. So again, my name's Kyle, founder of Hire UA and Teamity, co-founder of Selo Garage. I'll put links to everything down in the description below. Quick story, 2014, started my first blog. This is trouble, over 1 million readers at one point. 2016, quit my job, moved to Eastern Europe on a one-way ticket. 2017, in addition to running the blogs, I was running a huge network of micro niche sites, basically at one point making 20K a month with 4 hours a week of work. I did absolutely nothing. Those were in the dating, supplement, and travel niches. 2018, I got back into doing personal branding, and I took everything that I learned from the niche sites, ended up making over $50,000 in one night on a live webinar, and made quite a bit of money selling that course as consulting package, basically a done for you offer, build a niche website. Made quite a lot of money on that over the years. 2018, sold olive oil for $75 a bottle. We've done over $1 million of sales at Selo. And 2022, I decoupled from a business partner, got rid of the old name, started Hire UA, well over 300 happy clients, saving them over $1 million a month, and then founded Teamity. That's going on this year. That's not out yet, but it's getting there. So here's what we're going to talk about, everything today. Macro concept, obviously, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You need to pick one thing, and you actually need to stick with it. You need to be patient and trust in whatever it is that you've done. 4, you should know when to pull the plug. 5, overnight success stories are not always true. They are the exception, not the norm. 6, you need to celebrate the small wins and cherish them on the way, but you also want to keep a level head. 7, having the right people around is really key. And 8, failures are an opportunity to learn. So point number 1, the macro concept of all of this is that business is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if you are an entrepreneur, you always find yourself constantly chasing the latest and greatest get rich scheme or latest and greatest lead gen or whatever it's going to be. Perhaps you're someone who wants to start their own business and you see all the success stories. Oh, I bought my mom a Lamborghini. Oh, I bought my dad 10 Lamborghinis, whatever else. The thing is, most of these schemes are designed to get someone rich, and it's not usually you. You're not usually the one who's going to actually make the money off of this. If you don't believe me, consider this. If you look back at a lot of influencers and gurus and the things that they were selling, a couple of years ago, they were telling everybody to go all in on the metaverse and to buy virtual houses and virtual cars and everything else in the metaverse. And people were actually comparing it to buying Manhattan real estate, a century ago. They're like, this is the equivalent to buying Manhattan real estate in 1950 or whatever year. It's just wild. Obviously that has not come true. It could, maybe it will one day, but all of those people they've backed off that way of thinking, that thought. They're no longer saying this. They're no longer pitching the metaverse. They're pitching something else. While I said business is a marathon, it's also a sprint, and it's a lot of sprints within the marathon. So simply put, the biggest things, the biggest progress that you're going to make is going to come in a very short period of time. It's kind of like the 80-20 rule. It tends to come true in almost anything in life, especially true in business. So chasing after what everyone else says to do is usually going to be futile. You don't want to do that. Instead, you should be picking one thing and actually sticking with it. So elaborating on this concept here, business is a series of sprints. Let me put this in presentation mode, it'll look better. So business is a series of sprints. What this means is that you might have like a month or two where you work 16-hour days and you push that boulder forward and you get that momentum just absolutely rolling, and then you get to take a step back. But a lot of times putting your head down and actually doing the hard shit that actually moves the business forward is actually going to like pay off significantly. And you had to put in a ton of effort, a ton of willpower, a ton of brain power right then and there. But then it gets easier, and then that system is built, it's running on autopilot, or it's working without you, and then you can kind of take a step back. But a lot of times you've really got to rest and then conjure up that energy to really push something forward before it actually is going to show the results. So like I said, it is a marathon. You should be thinking of years, not months, not weeks, not days, but you should also be prepared to really sprint and push yourself and your business forward, for a short period of time throughout those years. Okay, so pick one thing and actually stick with it. It's an absolutely crazy concept. Every time that I've tried to start something new, I would try different things and I'd get shiny object syndrome. And then what you end up doing is you end up doing a bunch of things poorly, or you give up right before you're about to actually see the success with the thing that you originally started. Every time with an existing business that I chased a new idea, or new acquisition method, new lead gen channel, whatever it's going to be, instead of just 10xing down on what actually worked, totally screwed myself. The reality is most people end up doing this. They jump from thing to thing, they get the shiny object syndrome, and they end up in this, I'm pointing at my screen here, this horrible, horrible cycle where they see something shiny, they go and they do it, or you do it, you don't give it enough, and you're right there on the precipice of getting it over the hill, and then that boulder's gonna be rolling downhill, it's gonna have all the momentum, and then you end up giving up, and you go on to the next thing, and you do the same fucking cycle over and over and over again. And there are business owners, entrepreneurs, or want to be business owners who spend years in this cycle doing the same thing. The duration of this might be different, but they're in this circle and they never get out of it. You'd be amazed how many people are still here. So in the case of, say, a business, let's say you're struggling to get customers or clients. So you say, oh, I'm going to try doing cold email. So that's where you do it. You do cold email, but you don't do it enough. You haven't really put enough effort. You haven't really put in enough power to get that boulder rolling down the hill. Instead, right when you're probably about to tip over the mountain and the boulder's going to roll downhill, you give up. And so then you start again and you find something shiny again. And maybe then it's, oh, I'm going to do podcast marketing. I actually tried this recently. It didn't work very well. And again, that same cycle, you do it, blah, blah, blah. If you're starting a business, you could say, oh, I'm going to do drop shipping. If you're like in 2016, 2017, I'm going to drop ship stuff off of AliExpress from China. And you start doing it. And you're right on the precipice. You found a couple good suppliers, but then one of them maybe goes out of business, and then you have to find someone else. Instead of just finding a new supplier and doubling down on what was working, you end up giving up the last part of the cycle. And then you start a new business, and you say, I'm going to be an Instagram influencer. And you post a bunch of content. The content's not very good. It's not getting people engaged. You don't actually give it enough time, and you give up. And then you say, I'm going to start an agency, and you do the whole fucking thing over and over and over. And I've seen people who want to start a business, they will spin in this. This hat does not fit me, unfortunately. Need to resize it. They'll stay in this forever. Like they will not get out of the cycle. It's horrible to watch, and it's the reality of a lot of people who want to actually start a business. Number 3, be patient and trust in whatever the process is and get it done. So let me tell a story. When we started Selo Olive, which is my olive oil company that ships out of the Zadar region in Croatia, we had points where we weren't sure how things were actually going to work out. And this is the whole point of being a business owner, is you never know what's really around the corner, what kind of ambush is being set up for you. So we at some point didn't have everything we needed to ship it properly. And I mean regulation wise, but we had everything planned. Like the oil was sitting in my business partner Martin's garage in Canada. He was living in Canada at the time. So we had 1,000 liters, a gigantic tub, half the size of my recording office here. And we just had to go because it was going to go bad. And we had started taking orders, we'd started publicizing it. And so we just had to figure it out and hope that everything else came in. So basically, I flew to Canada, I think it was like January 2018, and we just went all in. Like we were up every night till 3 o'clock in the morning in his garage bottling this. And we had this whole assembly line. Basically had the tub. We'd have to crouch down, fill the bottle. Once the bottle was filled, that person would take the bottle and they'd put what came next? They'd put the cork in it. They'd heat seal the top. So you see like right here, the heat seal on there. And then it would go to the next person. They would bottle it or they would label it, make sure it was all set up nicely. They'd pack it, saran wrap it because we had a lot of breakage because we hadn't shipped anything at that point. So we didn't know how things were actually going to hold up to the postal services. Glass bottle, obviously. You don't really want olive oil leaking everywhere. And then they'd put the label on, get it in the box, and then we would be stacking it in a way that, we knew which order was what, and then make sure it was getting to the post office. And we were taking 3 or 4 trips to the post office every day. We'd like go in the morning, go in the afternoon, probably go in the evening again because orders were coming in. And we also, we were putting his brothers to work as well. They were helping to bottle. We'd go drive, et cetera, et cetera. It was wild. And at this point, we'd obviously had started to get some inkling that everything was going to be okay to ship it and that we weren't going to, get in trouble. But it was just so many unknowns. We didn't know how the corks were going to hold up. We didn't know how the bottles were going to look. We didn't know how the postal service was going to handle everything, even if we put fragile, fragile, fragile everywhere. You have to believe. If you don't believe in it, nobody else is going to believe in it. Business is about will as much as it is about work. And that story to me is just the perfect testament to it because we literally were in the garage bottling this stuff. Obviously I'm not going to sit here and compare this company to Apple, but you hear the stories of, Steve Jobs was sitting in his parents' garage, like building the first Apple computer. And this was similar. And it's just that will, no matter the crazy circumstances that you might be in, that you have to just push through it. And if you don't, then it's never going to get off the ground. This is the kind of stuff you have to do to get something going. Once it's going, it's a lot easier to maintain it. But this is the kind of weird stuff you have to do sometimes. And it's crazy to me in hindsight. 6 years later, I'm like, oh my God. I took 4 flights because I was living in Ukraine at the time. And Martin was living in Victoria, Canada. So I had to fly like on 4 legs to get there. I got in at like 2 in the morning. I think we went straight to work. Maybe I crashed out for an hour or so. I was sick, and I pretty much just was chugging olive oil, coffee, and adrenaline for like 4 days. And somehow, though, we got all of that done. We had hundreds. I think we had like 600 orders to fulfill. So the vast majority of that tub, 2/3 of it basically. And it was a lot, but we did it. And that's what I mean. You have to just will things into existence sometimes. Number 4. Know when to pull the plug. So a bad idea is a bad idea. You need to give things a fair shot, but you also need to know when to cut out because there's going to be a point when you need to cut out. So here's another cycle a lot of business owners go through is number 1, no one's buying your shit. Is it because you invented something weird or maybe you're offering something that nobody actually wants? Distinct possibility. Number 2, but what if people are coming to sales calls? So there's interest. So it's not a totally dumb idea, obviously. 3, maybe you're just shit at sales. That's not necessarily a problem with the service, the product, or the offering, but you need to improve it. Hold on. Oh, yeah, okay. Lost info. I thought I had another graph here. That's on another presentation. So if you've ever watched the show Shark Tank, there's some segments where people come on. They're like, how long have you been in business? They're like, 7 years. Like, how much revenue have you done? They're like, $30,000. And you start doing the math. You're like, okay, so 7 years, you've done $30,000. That's like $4,000 a year. And the entrepreneur on the screen in front of these billionaires on national TV says like, yeah. And they look at them, they say, do you think maybe that people aren't interested in this? And a lot of times they'll go like, yeah, I hadn't really thought of that, but that's a good point. At some point, if it's not working and no one's interested, you're not getting any leads, you're not getting anyone to book, you're not getting any orders, like obviously people don't want what you're selling. You're like an Eskimo trying to sell ice. It's silly. Go to the desert where people are dying of thirst and sell water instead. That makes a lot more sense than trying to, go the Eskimo route. So, overnight success rules. These are the exception. They are not the norm, but they generate a lot of buzz. And shows like Shark Tank glorify, oh yeah, this person was sleeping on the street and then all of a sudden they've now got this multi-million-dollar company. These shows are for publicity. They generate buzz, and social media has really, really, really amplified this. The culture glorifies The overnight success, the rags to rich stories. And this, in turn, sets, oops, oh gosh. Yeah, smooth. This, in turn, sets unrealistic expectations. So if you are expecting to buy a course or a mentorship, a coaching group, whatever it's going to be that says like, oh, this is how I made millions of dollars. And first off, like, why would someone, if they're making millions of dollars, why would they give away the sauce? It makes no sense whatsoever, unless it's no longer working. In that case, you might do it. But it sets unrealistic expectations of everyone can start a business and everyone can get rich overnight really, really quickly. And that's just not how it works. Like, you need to be thinking, like I said earlier, in a multi-year time frame, not a multi-month or a multi-week timeline. If you can't stick with something, like most people can't stick with something for 90 days. If I said the best business that you can start would be to sell, email marketing, and you need to go write an email every day about this for the next 3 months, like most of you would not actually do it. Plain and simple. This is just how life is. People overestimate their own story as well. So what I mean by this is that people think because they did it and it was easy for them that they can then teach everybody, and not everybody is the same. Like, you strike gold, and a big part of what business is sometimes striking gold at the right time and getting lucky. But you get lucky by putting in the volume and the reps and by having that willpower to drive things forward. So you only get lucky if you put in the effort. And yes, there are stories, of course, who people who like on their first day of business invented something crazy and they became billionaires. And that does happen, but that's really not the norm. That's the overnight rags to riches success story that rarely actually happens. What usually happens is you slog. You have to go through the swamp, and then eventually things take off. But it doesn't usually happen. And again, people overestimate how easy it is just because it was easy for them. They usually don't think about all the things that had to happen for them to get there. So, for example, we could say, like, I got lucky in a way. Hire UA, I was living in Ukraine at the time, and when the war started and Russia invaded, that could have been the death of the business. Instead, it was the catastrophic lever that made the business, no pun intended, and made it explode. So was I lucky in that situation? Yes, but look at this timeline again. So that was, 2022. Look at all the stuff that happened before. So I built one business. I built two business. I built a third business. I already slogged through a lot. And Hire UA had started at this point when the war kicked off. I changed the name later and kind of refounded it, I would say. But I had already slogged through crap on that business too. And so was I lucky? Yes, but I put myself in the positions to get lucky. If I hadn't pushed through everything else in the 8 years prior, then I might not have been in that position to get lucky then. Make sense? Pretty self-explanatory. You have to shoot your shot. Money and time, hopping from business to business or idea to idea, ultimately, you would have been much better off just buckling down and doing it instead of like finding a way not to do it. It's kind of like if you have kids, and I only have a 2-year-old. I don't have any like school age kids, but I remember being a kid myself and not wanting to do my homework. And by the time that I made up all the excuses and dilly-dallied and procrastinated and screwed around and lied to my parents, all that effort to not study, I would have just been a lot better off studying. And it would have probably been a lot faster. And it's the same thing in business. You can dilly-dally, you can sit there all day and decide, oh, maybe I should make a new logo. What should my logo look like? Oh, which state should I put my LLC in? Easier just to start actually doing the damn work. It really is. Okay. Number 6, macro concept business, 8 lessons founding 3 companies. Celebrate in small ways, and you also need to lose in small ways. So I love this graph. So this is your plan for your business. A nice, smooth, steady, very easy, right? No, this is what it actually looks like. It's, oh, here's this giant hole of boulders, and you have to zip line across, and you've got these trees here. You got to go through those. Then you got to go up the cable car. Then you've got to swim through the ocean and then scale over this thing. And then you got to deal with a huge thunderstorm and climb up a ladder, and there's a finish line. This graph is how business actually works. It's the reality of the situation. This is how business actually works. There's no other way around it. It is that simple. Having the right people around you is really important. So entrepreneurship tends to be a lonely road. And my mom's not around anymore, but she always understood me in business. Like I could always count on her to talk to me about it and to emphasize and to, just give general ideas, but she couldn't fully understand what I was actually going through. Because what I was actually going through was this graph of, this bike going up all these hills and through the lakes and through the thunderstorms and the mountains and everything. This is what I was going through. This is what, I don't want to say she thought that I had it nice and cushy, but she didn't have any reality of what the real reality was, plain and simple. But she supported me. And it's important that you have other entrepreneurs who actually understand what you're going through and the lonely roads and the ups and the downs. Because even if you have the full support of people around you, they can't truly understand it. Like even my wife, I've been with her since I, started my companies in 2016. So I met her a couple of years after I had gone into business and had bought my one-way ticket and moved to Eastern Europe. And, I was poor at the time. I was making like $2,000 a month online, like the first year I met her. So I was poor. She can't understand it. She hasn't lived it. She can support me, and she always does, but to actually understand like what I'm going through on a daily basis, those ups and those downs, and how to weather those storms is very, very difficult. Like I said, my mom too. And you're going to be in the same situation. Like you're going to have people in your life who are close to you and support you. And if you're lucky, that's going to be your spouse and your parents. And if you're unlucky, you'll have people like trying to drag you down, crabs in a bucket. But they're not really going to understand it. So it's important that you have actually, entrepreneurs and other business owners and people you can actually talk to about this stuff who really, really get it. It will make it so much easier. Number 8, failures are an opportunity. It's the price of tuition. So think about it. Let's say you want to start a business and you want to go to college, or you want to go to college. You can go to college, and I don't know what the prices of tuition is these days, but I'm guessing, you're going to spend $100,000 to go to college and get a good education, yada, yada. You can get a loan for that in a heartbeat. An 18-year-old kid can walk into anywhere and get that loan in a heartbeat to go to college, but he can't get $10,000 for a loan to start a business, which is kind of crazy. You'd be better off, if you want to start a business, starting it and failing multiple businesses than going to college, because the price is going to be cheaper. It's the price of tuition. Failure is the price you pay for the knowledge and the experience that you gain that allows you to succeed later in life. And if I go back up here, this is the highlight reel, to be very, very clear. This is the highlight reel of everything that went good. What we're missing in here is all the stuff that went really, really poorly. Like, geez. Let's see, I started the blog. That actually went pretty well. 2016, so I started building niche websites. My first one was called typesoftequila.com. I was going to sell like tequila shot glasses on Amazon or something. Didn't make any money from that. Had another niche site. I partnered with a friend. That didn't go very well. Had another one I tried with another friend. That didn't go very well. And then after like 5 failures, I finally hit on something. And then I doubled down on what worked. So that was a site called Ukraine Living. Basically sold dating subscriptions to the people traveling to Ukraine, where I was spending some time, and basically said, hey, you can meet pretty girls on here. And then that worked. So then I made one for other countries in Europe, and I made them for Latin America. And I had like 20 of them. And then same thing with supplements, this supplement started ranking, like let's double down and make more sites about supplements or whatever else it's going to be. And then, there's like, okay, so I made 50K in one night in 2018 on a webinar. But I didn't put here that there was a webinar in 2019 where I made like 3K. So that's what I mean. These failures are an opportunity. They're the price of tuition. It's better to fail fast and get it out of the way than to prolong things, get into sunk cost fallacy, and you say, it's going to work, it's going to work. It's better to fail quickly and know that your idea sucked or it's not a good idea than to be, basically be strung along. So just like, if let's say you're dating someone and you really dig them, and then you kind of get the vibe that they're not really feeling it the same way with you, but they go on a couple more dates with you, and it's kind of like, maybe it's something there, but you can kind of tell that they're lukewarm. You would prefer that they would just, after like the first date, say like, I'm not interested in pursuing this any further. Like, good luck to you, instead of you going on 5 dates with them and then they say that. So again, fail fast, get the lesson out of the way. The last thing, I want to make this point because we're on this whole failures thing, and I was talking about all of my failures that were in here. So social media, most of YouTube, most of Instagram is a highlight reel of people's best highlights. It does not show all the stuff. Speaking of a low light, as I scroll away from the wrong screen, It doesn't show all the stuff in the middle of all this that was a disaster. Like truly, this looks great, what I'm showing here on the screen, but there's so much crap in the way. And each one of these, look, we sold over $1 million of artisan olive oil from an obscure place in Croatia. But there were so many problems along the way. If you even just go back and like you look at the bottle now, where is it? Like you look at the bottle now, this is like the 5th bottle because a lot of them had problems. So there's always going to be ups and downs along the way, and you have to really learn to just weather them out. And I would say, don't believe everything you see on social media. So, I don't have a course to sell. I don't sell any coaching, any consulting. I'm on this channel making this content purely to provide value and help people start a business or grow a business in the hopes that you then obviously hire through one of my hiring companies. That's my pitch. But I didn't even notice that I didn't include any of the lowlights really in this, and maybe I will actually. I'll use this template moving forward and I'll put some of the lowlights in there because I want to be very clear that it's not all smooth. It's not. For every one of these successes that you see, there's 7 of them on the screen. There's like probably 70 failures in all of them. Like you add a 0 to it, honestly. So keep in mind, everything you see on social media is not the truth. Keep that in mind. You'll ultimately do a lot better in business and life. And again, pick one thing, focus on it, tune out the noise. Don't listen to what everybody says. Don't listen to gurus and what they preach, especially if they're trying to sell you a course. And that's all I have for this video. If you're a business owner looking to hire, go to hire-ua.com, book some time to speak with the team. If you want to buy my olive oil, drop a link to that below at selloolive.com. Otherwise, have a great weekend. See you in the next video.